small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Hey, come on in. Let's hang out for a bit. Good to see you. Thanks for dropping by Rebel Force Radio. We are back. I hope you enjoyed last week's From the Vault episode. That was a lot of fun to go back and listen to those clips, especially the Mark Hamill panel from Celebration Japan back in 2008. That was a hoot. Such a different time then. Some might say a more innocent time. But still fun to go back and listen to that stuff. And, Mark's always great at telling stories, and there certainly was no exception there. And we are just a couple of weeks away from Star Wars Celebration Japan 2025. So if you're... I just ran into a guy over the weekend who is going to Star Wars Celebration Japan. I'll talk about that more in a minute, but... So if you're going to be heading out, that'd be a great time to stock up on Rebel Force Radio podcast, by the way. So if there's some episodes you haven't gotten to, if you're a Patreon supporter, you want to make sure you get download local copies of the Q&A or the Babu Freaks. Do that. It's a great way. It's a long flight, depending on where you're flying from. Flying from the States, it's a long flight, so you want to definitely stock up on some quality audio entertainment. Rebel Force Radio brings that to you in spades. Speaking of Celebration Japan, we have some rumors coming up later in the program that there might be some big announcements when it comes to Star Wars animation that could be announced at Star Wars Celebration Japan later this month. But there was a big confirmation that happened today as we record this podcast, and that is the announcement of brand new Star Wars animated anthology series. I guess we could call this season 3 of the Tales of. In this instance, we've got Tales of the Underworld, and it'll be debuting on May the 4th, just in another month or so. And we're going to be breaking down that trailer and talking about, what we think about this announcement and all of that stuff. Also, Bruce Villanch, if those of you grew up in the, in the 70s and 80s, remember Bruce Villanch. He was just such a fixture in the world of variety entertainment, award shows, and things like that. He's a writer. He did a lot of the writing for all the big variety shows at the time, game shows, things like that. But he's got a new book out. And of course, he is one of the writers of the Star Wars Holiday Special. And so we will be sharing some highlights of, I'm assuming, the audiobook of Bruce Villanch's latest tome. And he's going to be looking back on working on the Star Wars Holiday Special. So great show coming for you. Hope you enjoy it as much as we like doing it. And by we, I mean me. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. We are back for more RFR. Yeah, Jason's right. We gave you a little bit of a From the Vault show last week. Some might call it a clip show. But I mean, the clips
It's a best of, Jim, a best of.
No, it wasn't a best of, no. It was clips that our worldwide audience haven't ever heard from our Patreon exclusive show, RFR Q&A. And so I thought that would be a really cool thing to do, is just give everyone a taste and suggest if you want more, go over to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio and join the community there, and you'll have access to exclusive podcasts like RFR Q&A, full show video, early bird releases, and so much more. Ad-free shows. ad-free shows. It's all at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. So, and then we had the Mark Hamill panel, which I've never played in its entirety. I've maybe a clip here or there, but not the full panel, especially with all that Japanese interpretation. I followed up with Steve Sansweet. Steve was at Lucasfilm during the time of that convention. So Steve played a big hand in organizing a lot of that stuff. And I asked him, Steve, do you remember who that interpreter is? Do you have his name scribbled down somewhere in your records? And he didn't know the guy's name. But we both agreed that the dude was extremely talented and did such a great job presenting English-speaking American Hollywood talent to a mostly Japanese-speaking audience.
You got to figure that's a real niche profession there, doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, well,
so if he's the best, I'm sure there's not a long list of them.
There's a guy from Chicago who's out there in Japan, and he's had a long career, super successful guy. Boy, I wish I could remember his name. It's Dave something or another, and he's
Interpreter
big star in Japan, and he's a Chicago guy. So it happens. It does happen. But Star Wars Celebration, that's going to be happening. And I can tell you there's definitely going to be way more Americans and Europeans there than there was just a small fraction of people like that at the one in 2008. I think there are going to be a lot of people there from the United States and Europe. Star Wars Celebration has become just such a machine now, and so many people are on board with the experience. There's been so many of them out this time. Back then, Star Wars Celebration was still, first it emerged as a way to promote the prequels. And then we were surprised when all of a sudden in 2007, to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the franchise, they had one in L.A., and that's where you and me met for the first time, Jason. That's where we first met face to face.
Face to face, yeah.
Yeah, you, me, Billy Mack. It was a scene, man. It was quite a scene. We knew right away that, hey, this guy, Jason, he gets our brand of humor. And me and Billy were thinking, he's one of us. Great. He's one of us. Little did I know, almost 20 years later, we'd be still doing it. And if you ask me, I'm putting all humbleness aside, I think we're doing it better than we ever have. So long live Rebel Force Radio.
It's not just you saying it, Jim. We've heard from a lot of listeners saying, you know what, I've been listening since the early days, and I think the shows that you're doing now are the best you've ever done. So there you go.
We'll take it.
From the mouths of our listeners. I had a really great weekend, by the way. I just want to throw out a quick mention that I got to hang out with young Chase Norton over the weekend.
Wow.
The spawn of Sheldon Norton. Chase, he's not a little kid anymore. I tell you what, he's a fantastic young man, and he and his buddies were coming through. He's from Toronto, and they came into Northeast Ohio for a Pokemon tournament.
Pokemon's huge, man.
Yeah, it's like poker now. There's like a pot, you can win money. And but he peeled away from his buddies for a few hours on Sunday to come down and hang with me, which that was great. So we went to a couple of toy shops. Okay. And like one of them is Happy Pappy's action figure shop. And this guy, Happy Pappy. And we had a ball. I did pick up a couple because I'm rebuilding my vintage collection, Star Wars vintage collection. I picked up a couple of, some might call them beaters, but I don't consider these beaters. So I'll tell you who I got. This is one I never had as a kid. And this is Leia in her Bespin gown right here.
Oh, yeah. That's a great one. You got it with the cape. With the cape and the...
Now, she does have a little tear. These capes tear real easy. It's a little tear, but you know what? She displays, and all I care about is whether they display nicely, And I think she looks pretty darn good.
Is the blaster authentic?
No way. No, that's repro.
Okay, I didn't think
that's repro. Call the police. Call the
Well, no, I was just wondering because it's a gray blaster, and I don't ever recall seeing that figure with a gray blaster.
So some of the repro sets that you get, they'll give you the black version and they'll give you the blue version. They'll also throw in a gray so that you can paint it if you want, if you need a blue or a black. And so I haven't painted this one yet. This particular Leia, from my research, came with a blue version of this blaster.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
And then I also got this was one of my childhood favorites, and it got lost over the years. But I got Wicket, the original Wicket,
Good old Wicket.
Yeah, and now the hood is original, but the spear is repro. But I just loved it. Boy, as a 6-year-old kid, I could put him in my pocket. You know,
yeah.
A little. No, I'm not like Windows and fanboys. I didn't have a Yoda in my pocket. I had a Wicket in my pocket, but. So anyway, Chase and I had a really good time, but the owner, Pappy himself, he asked me if I was going to Celebration in Japan. I said, no, not going to be able to do it. And he's like, I'm going. So he was all about it. He's going to go out there and take his...
Even Pappy's going.
Pappy from Canton, Ohio is going. Anyway, we had a great time. It was fun to hang out with Chase.
We'll have some RFR representatives out there for us. Barry Harmon from the Babu Freaks, of course. And Joe Dallas, RFR VIP Joe Dallas will be out there. So
Great.
We'll have a couple of friends out there, but we'll be following all of the events closely here. And we plan on doing a special live stream that weekend, the weekend of Star Wars Celebration Japan. So we'll have more info for you coming down in probably next week. We'll let you know exactly when. But
yeah.
I think we're shooting for Saturday around midday.
Yeah. Okay. Saturday midday, and we're gonna turn get the phone lines going so you can call in and talk about maybe the things that you've watched or you've heard, and it's just gonna be a big kind of Celebration Japan wrap up and review Rebel Force Radio. So
right. So what time will that be in Japan? Just say
okay.
We target noon Central. Okay, that's not the time. We haven't settled on the exact time, but just say.
This is all in theory, folks. 12 Central.
They're like 14 hours ahead of us, so it'd be 2 in the morning, right?
Yeah, be 2 in the morning.
Yeah. 2 or 3 in the morning.
Right.
I don't know, with time zones and daylight savings, daylight standards.
It's a lot of math, but it's definitely early in the morning. But I figure by that time, most of the big news is going to be out.
Right.
I can't remember like a big announcement on a final day of a celebration. They get that news out the first couple days.
Usually the big announcement is typically when the next convention, and where the next convention will be. And so who cares about that? Everybody will know that.
Now,
I mean, what are we going to do? Talk about a date? Oh, Jason, look, it's going to be in Frankfurt in 2026. Are you going? No. Are you going? No. Okay, show's over.
Well, Pappy did say that he's heard some rumors, and he's an exhibitor. He shows up and sells.
Yeah. Pappy knows.
Pappy's rumor is that there's going to be 2 back-to-back celebrations. There's going to be a Orlando celebration in 26, and then there's going to be the big 50th anniversary celebration in Anaheim in 2027.
Oh, okay.
See,
that makes sense to me. That makes a lot of sense to me because next year they have The Mandalorian and Grogu to promote.
Right.
That's a big deal. And then the following year is the 50th anniversary, which is going to be seeing a lot of coverage from all sort of things, newsstand publications, internet, national television coverage, worldwide television coverage. It's going to be a big deal. People are going to be talking about it. And then there are people like me who've been around since the beginning who will be saying, oh my God, 50 years. 50 years since Star Wars. Then frantically checking on our life insurance policies to make sure everything's up to date.
No. You know what, though? I mean, okay, for you got to do a little math when Star Wars hits one of those milestones. I age with Star Wars, so when Star Wars turns 50, I turn 50. So I'm constantly reminded. Wow. I remember with the the 40th. Was the 40th or was it the 35th? There was one because we were there on my birthday. It was when there was an August celebration one year.
Star Wars Celebration 2012.
2012.
Yeah. Same day I got my tattoo.
That was the 35th. Yeah, that was my 35th. You got your tattoo, and I got hand, foot, and mouth disease. And nearly
that's right.
Nearly gave it to Ian McDiarmid. You remember that story?
I wish you did. And maybe you did. We don't know what he took.
We don't know. We don't know. But
that's not something you publicize.
No, that haunted me.
I just remember
forever.
you saying to me. I just remember you saying to me when we got back home after that. You're like, "Yeah, I saw my doctor, and he's like, he told me all about this disease. He says it's so serious, and it's just like, I mean, just really, really bad." And then you paused and you said. And you acted like it was nothing the whole time. You acted like it was no big deal. It's like you didn't even care. I said, me? And you're like, yeah, really. You just didn't really even. And I said, well, that's because you handled it with such stoicism. And it didn't seem like a big deal because of the way you were reacting.
I was dying, Jimmy. I was dying.
I had no idea. Thank God I didn't catch it.
Dude, remember? Because we had Michael with us, and they sequestered us in the hotel because they thought that it might have been, what was it that why did they keep us? They didn't want us to leave until the test
there was a reason.
back.
Well, I think it was the hand, foot, and...
No, they weren't testing us for that because then
they thought it was something else,
They thought it was something else. And it turned out to be the case because I broke out in a really high fever the first night, and then the fever went away, and I kind of got back to business. Anyway, it's Tales of Celebration. But
Tales of Celebration, yeah. But we were trapped in that room that Saturday night. We couldn't go to the 501st party.
That's
big
right.
laws.
Yeah. I just felt bad because Michael. I mean. He got stuck. He got stuck with us.
He was at that age where just being in a hotel room was just amazing.
That was an adventure all to itself. But I shook a lot of hands that weekend. So, if you
and apparently a lot of feet too.
Yeah, I guess so. So if you came down with hand, foot, and mouth in the summer of 2012, you can thank me if you met me at Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah, or maybe you gave it to him. So
maybe you
look in the mirror, think about what you did. But so those are fun tales from Star Wars Celebration. Yes. Who knows what we could catch if we went to Japan? I mean, they would be just exotic and international type of diseases, which we could bring home with us and start a whole new thing.
Yeah, right.
A whole new thing.
Get the whole
new
party
rush
going
on
again,
hand sanitizer and
get
face
the masks
out. The whole thing comes back because me and Jason went to a Star Wars convention.
The pandemic has been traced to two well-known Star Wars podcasters
who shook everyone's hand at the convention for some reason. When they weren't
zero
breathing
and
on
one. Unbelievable.
Jeez. Well, so that's why we're not going to Star Wars Celebration Japan. It's really, we're trying to be responsible for society.
Yes.
But I know a lot of people are. I'm looking forward to hearing the stories. Something tells me we're going to be overwhelmed with complaints. Because I don't think people, it's going to be a much bigger, they have a much larger footprint at the convention center than they had for 2008. And like I said, Star Wars Celebration has become such a machine at this point now that maybe people won't be complaining as much as I fear. I just think that, I wanted to do a public service by releasing that Mark Hamill interview last week, just to sort of let people know how the tempo and the pacing is going to be in these panels with all the constant starts and stops due to the Japanese translation.
It really cuts it down to about half, wouldn't you say, Jim? If everybody was speaking
of course
English
it does.
natively,
maybe even more.
Yeah,
maybe even more, because Mark would say like a sentence that was 5 words, and then the translation would go on for like a minute and a half. I don't know. Maybe that guy was just, taking advantage of the stage time, and he was just like riffing, making stuff up. Who knows?
Yeah.
Mark wouldn't know. I didn't know. But that's something that's kind of interesting. I do think the ratio, though, of native local Japanese compared to those who are traveling from Europe and the States, I think the ratio is going to be much different, though, this time around. Because last time, you would walk into areas of the convention center where it really felt like nobody could really speak English to you at all, Yeah. And I noticed that in various places in Japan as well, places where you would expect people to speak English because you are an arrogant American, but like at hotel desks. Concierge desks sometimes. It was be like they'd know a little English, but so I'm just trying to let people know that you definitely are going to going to be steeped in the Japanese culture.
One advantage that people have now, and we're not talking about like Star Trek levels translators, but people do have the benefit of phones, AI, and things like that. So that could make things a bit easier. You're talking to your phone. I've seen them do this on the live cop shows. They pull somebody over, they don't speak English, cop talks into his phone, and it spits it out in Spanish or whatever the language is. So
you're a tech guy. How far are we away from being able to wear a little earbud that picks up the conversation and then translates it in your ear in real time?
I think honestly, I think we're probably just a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 or 3 years. I mean, the commercial that seemed to sweep the nation over the holidays was the dad that gets the daughter the guitar, and he's able to fine tune his AirPods so that he could hear her singing on Christmas morning. Same, but it's that same kind of thing where you can drop. AI will allow you to drop other audio out of your experience, just hone in on the speaker and do the translation, and then feed a translation back to you. So I don't think it's there yet, but I think that it's getting very, very close.
That's amazing.
Within a couple of years.
Just incredible to think about, what kind of changes that will make to things like entertainment, like going to a movie theater.
Right.
I mean, you can take these earbuds in with you, and it might be interactive with what's happening on the screen and everything.
No more subtitles.
That's incredible.
If you're a hearing person, no more subtitles. So if you're watching, a foreign film, it could really. And the thing about AI is it has the ability to replicate the speaker, the person. So it's like it would sound to them like a facsimile of Jimmy Mac's voice talking Japanese. Imagine what that could do for podcasting. If we could release RFR in multiple languages.
Ooh. Dude, I think you're talking about things that are like right around the corner.
I would
as far as the way this technology, the AI technology is growing. Thank God, a good use for AI. We found it.
RFR International.
Yeah. We're gonna do it, man. We're gonna do it. I can't wait. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. Well, we won't need any translators for the big RFR live event at Rancho Obi-Wan. That's for darn sure. And that's coming happening up in September 6th. And this is something we've been saying we've been wanting to do for a very long time. And the stars and the planets finally aligned. And here we go, Jim. September 6th, RFR, finally live from Rancho Obi-Wan.
That's right. We're doing a full podcast from the grounds at Rancho Obi-Wan. The museum will be open for walkthroughs. The video arcade will be turned on, powered up, and ready to rock. The general store will be open. And this all goes to raise funds for Rancho Obi-Wan's initiative to build the Saga Museum. And the Saga Museum will be open to the public facility in some metropolitan area somewhere in the States, and it will gather some of the biggest collections, Star Wars collections in the universe, including the full collection from Rancho Obi-Wan, which happens to be the Guinness Book of World Records' largest collection of Star Wars memorabilia. Tickets and additional info will be made available later this spring. And did you see that the Rancho Obi-Wan, they scored one of those Star Wars battle pods for the arcade?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that game?
I've never seen that game, but you were lighting up the Jedi Council, telling us that that's the new acquisition. I've never seen that game. I'm not quite the arcade guy like you are.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Is it a newer game?
Yeah, it came out maybe sometime in the last 10 years. But it's incredible technology. You walk into this phone booth type thing. Or, okay, phone booth might be a dated reference. Photo booth type of contraption. And you have these controls, and there's this big giant screen that sort of wraps around in the battle pod. And it feels like you're flying a starship in a battle. I took Dylan McInerney to Dave and Buster's once during spring break. And we hogged that machine like pros. There were so many disappointed children hovering around that machine, trying to get a turn, but me and Dylan were just passing it off to each other. I'd do my turn, and then I'd get out, he'd jump in. Then he'd finish, and I'd jump in. We held onto that thing for like 3 hours. And if you look at that photo that I sent everyone, if you see the feet down at the bottom, those gym shoes clearly belong to Stephen J. Sansweet. So Steve is broken in the game considerably at this point, I'm sure.
Look at Steve at 80 still playing the video games. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's not slowing down for anyone. And the battle pod is at Rancho Obi-Wan now, so holy smokes. This I posted on their Facebook page. I'm like, okay, this is a game changer, folks. This is a game changer. And I'm so happy we'll be able to go there with a group of Rebel Force Radio listeners and see the whole thing, the arcade, the museum, everything. It's just a mind-blowing place. And the Patreon community is buzzing right now. Tickets have not even been made available, but I've been made aware of several members of the Rebel Force Radio Patreon community. They've already locked down hotel rooms. They've already locked down rental cars and flights, the whole shebang. They're just sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for the tickets to go on sale. Tickets will be limited, too. We're talking in the ballpark of somewhere around 100, maybe a little bit more. Who knows? Yeah. But I can tell you, the Patreon community, they're going to get first access to these tickets. RFR VIPs first, then the rest of the paid supporters of our Patreon community will then get access to the tickets. So I'm just saying, if you really want to go, you probably want to become a member of the Rebel Force Radio Patreon community, because it's possible. I would be a little surprised and maybe even kind of shocked. But I think the possibility is there, just judging from how hyped up a lot of people are about this thing who belong to the Patreon community. They could buy up all the tickets the second they go on sale. So, I mean, like I said, they're already lining up their trips. And everything.
I was thinking about that.
I've heard from countless numbers of people, 20, 30, 40 people even. And a lot of these people are becoming family members, significant others. Even somebody told me they're bringing their dad. So you do the math. Those tickets are going to go fast.
Cool.
Yeah, right. I'll be wearing my dad pants to honor all the fathers. And speaking of which, thank you, Scott St. Louis, for sending me a birthday present. Star Wars Dad Jokes, the book. I got it right here.
Oh, look at that.
Star Wars Dad Jokes.
Star Wars Dad Jokes.
I'll just tell you one of them.
You got to read us one here, Jim.
All right. Let me find one. They're horrid. I don't know. Maybe some of these are so bad they're good. I'm not sure. When is the Millennium Falcon not a spaceship? When Princess Leia and Han Solo are on board, it's a courtship.
Oh.
Wow. I mean, I tried to read this while I was sitting on the can, and all my poop climbed back up into my butt. It was just didn't even want to be around for this. I bet you never heard that one before. I certainly am not. Did you hear about the cantina owner who moved his business to Cloud City? He really raised the bar. Raised the bar. Cloud City up in the sky. Raised the bar is now in the sky. So we'll be hearing more Star Wars dad jokes as we get closer to our Father's Day episode.
I'm your father, Luke. Give in to the dark side of the Force, you knob.
Rebel Force Radio.
What do you say we do a little listener mail? What do you think?
Punch it, you
must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey guys, this is Aaron from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I just wanted to share a quick story with you. I was walking my dog on the streets of New York City the other day, and I saw coming at me these two guys and a girl wearing Jedi robes. So I said hi to them. I was like, hey, you guys Star Wars fans? And I had my headphones in, actually, and I was listening to RFR. And they were kind of taken aback. I actually think maybe they thought I was going to make fun of them, like they were wearing Jedi robes on Street River. They thought I was going to tease them. And then I took off my headphones and said, no, I'm listening to a Star Wars podcast. I'm a big Star Wars fan. And then they kind of lined up, and I said, oh, do you guys listen to Rebel Force Radio? And they were like, we love Rebel Force Radio. So then we had a chance to talk about the show and about Star Wars. And anyway, you guys with the podcast saved maybe an awkward interaction. So may the Force be with you, and thanks for making an opportunity for me to make some new stranger friends on the streets of New York.
Hey, there's no strangers amongst RFR listeners, I'll tell you that. So I love the fact that we are helping people to find each other. We're building bridges between fans all over the place, even in New York, even in the streets of New York. I love it. What are the odds? Pretty good.
I've bumped into people here and there too who just randomly are listeners of the show. And then I tell them, if you listen to Rebel Force Radio, you might be hearing me. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it, Jason Swank. No, not Jason. And then I see the looks of disappointment kind of
of
come
course
over them. And you're the other one. Oh, okay. They always wrap up the conversation with "Bring back Pete."
Oh, yeah.
Feel heartbroken.
Boy, that's a deep cut, especially these days. Okay, that was an easy one. I don't want to say that voicemail didn't count, but that was somewhat self-serving, but it was a great story, and I wanted to put it on there. Let's go. We got one more voicemail. Let's hit it. That one was too easy.
Okay. All right.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Gavin from Utah. I just came across an Instagram post that was making fun of some midichlorians. The post itself might not be appropriate for a family-friendly show, but it did raise some questions that I had. It talked about how midichlorians live in your living tissue, but when you lose a limb, you're losing a lot of living tissue, and so you become weaker in the Force. And it did make me wonder. I know that Qui-Gon talks about how the midichlorians live in your cells, and then Obi-Wan talks about how Anakin has a higher midichlorian count than even Master Yoda. And so obviously more midichlorians means you're more powerful in the Force. But when you lose a limb, like Anakin did, lost his legs on Mustafar, did he become less powerful in the Force? Or did Luke become less powerful in the Force when he lost his hand on Bespin? I haven't heard you guys talk about this in the last 8 or 9 years that I've been listening, so I'm curious of what you all think about losing cells and becoming weaker in the Force. Anyway, love the show. Take care.
I think it would have to be the case. I always assumed, going back as far as I can remember, that one of the things that made Palpatine so attracted to Luke Skywalker was that he was a younger, healthier, more whole version of his father. And yeah, he's damaged goods. He's lost 2 legs. He's lost an arm. So I think it stands to reason, just my opinion, that would have some impact. Now, they're starting at a a surplus of midichlorians. So, I mean, that doesn't mean that they're now, down to the level of a Yariel Poof or, I don't know, Kiadi Mundi. But nevertheless, I do think that it has to have some impact simply because Qui-Gon does create the connection between living cells and the Force. The Force, or the midichlorians, communicate with the Force, and they reside in our cells. What do you think, Jim?
I think not. And I'll tell you why. Who's the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy?
Yoda.
Who is the smallest Jedi in the galaxy?
Well, wait a minute, though. No. Yoda's not the strongest Jedi in the galaxy.
I said, well, he's not.
He's not the strongest with
powerful?
the Force. He might be the best trained, but he doesn't have a midichlorian count as high as Anakin.
Right. But I think it's more like they measure it per volume, It's like...
Oh, so it's all relative.
Yeah, it's relative is what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, so it's relative.
Because if it was something like he became weaker in the Force because he lost his legs and his arm, no, I think he became weaker physically. But as Yoda tells us, the Force is much more than your physical self. And I think that it would be, like I said, a per volume sort of thing, like a midichlorian per ounce kind of situation. Because in this situation, you could be cutting vegetables or something and cut your finger and bleed all over the place and have to go to the hospital to get stitches on your finger. And then all of a sudden you go home and it's like, oh, I can't mind read as well as I used to. That to me just doesn't add up. So I think it's more of a...
Yeah.
And I think where it becomes most important isn't having midichlorians reside in your limbs. It's probably the concentration of midichlorians is more or less found up in your brain more than anything. And it's like if you bleed so much, you lose all your
brain
white
cells.
Blood cells. Yeah, brain cells, right, for sure. So, and if you bleed so much, you lose a lot of white blood cells. That doesn't diminish your ability to stave off infection or any, it doesn't make you, it doesn't affect your autoimmune system in such a way that it's irreplaceable, even if you lose a limb. I'm no doctor or anything, but I think that's how it works.
Doctor of Forceology.
I don't think Anakin's connection to the Force or his ability, his midichlorian counts even, was affected. Because, they're just, they take that midichlorian count out of one drop of blood. And they're able to tell what the midichlorian count is. They don't take all your blood to test your midichlorian. They just take one single drop. They prick it from your finger. So I don't think losing a limb means you necessarily lose midichlorians because it's all about balance, a ratio of white blood cells, red blood cells, and midichlorians. And whatever that ratio is, that's what makes you strong in the Force. Not necessarily how many you have. It's just how they measure it in volume. That's what I think.
Okay. All right.
But again, I'm no 21B. I'm definitely no 21. I'm no FX7. I can't compute these things. But I think that the Emperor thought he got lesser of an apprentice because Anakin was clearly handicapped and had to rely on machinery to get himself around. And so I think Palpatine sort of frowned upon that. He was less than authentic because he had all the bionics. But at the end of the day, he was still just as strong in the Force as he was prior to those amputations.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Okay. I get the by volume thing because you're not going to have, like you said, fewer white blood cells
Yeah.
If you're a quadriplegic. So I get what you're saying there. Now there might be another side to this where if you take Vader, for example, and he's lost so much of his humanity because of the fact that he needs to be hooked up to all this machinery in order to live. What does that do to someone physically? What does that do to someone mentally? So he may not be as effective in all manner of force using as, say, Luke would have been, like a Luke turning to the dark side, where, again, younger, healthier, in maybe in better touch with his mental state and things like that. So, but I'm definitely re-examining my belief. But it was definitely a thing that Palpatine was looking at Luke as being a younger, more capable version of Anakin. The Anakin he really wanted, but by the time he finally got what he wanted, he was damaged goods, man. Damaged goods on the.
It's just it wasn't as good as it could have been. That's what Palpatine was thinking.
Oh, I had such plans. But now look at him, more machine than man. That's not cool.
No,
that's not cool. He was such a great wingman for when we go hit the clubs in Coruscant. Now look at him.
Yeah, now look at him. Can you imagine? Palps would have been happy with young, handsome Hayden Anakin's, his seconds. But Vader,
that could be it. Maybe Palpatine would be thinking to himself,
"Oh, I like the mask. It's really intimidating and evil. It really screams Sith, doesn't it? But I was so looking forward to having this poster boy for the Empire that people would really be attracted to it. Look at Hayden. I mean Anakin.
I mean, you're joking, but you know what though? Despite the joke, imagine if you just imagine how much more Vader with the face of Anakin Skywalker, how much more he could have done for the image of the Empire.
Absolutely.
Young, handsome, virile, the hero of the Clone Wars. Look at our politicians, the good-looking ones, the handsome ones, the pretty ones. They always do a little bit better. Yeah,
of course.
So,
ever since the Kennedy-Nixon debate, the first debate that was televised, and everybody was looking at it going, "Ooh, that's Nixon. I don't like the looks of that guy. Look at JFK."
So JFK is Anakin, and Richard Nixon is Vader.
Is Vader? Yeah. I'm sure that comparison has been made many times before in the past almost 50 years.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks for the voicemails. Always appreciate them. Thanks for the compliments as well. Hopefully, we did our best to answer your burning midichlorian questions. So you can always drop us a voicemail.
Hayden. Ask not what you could do for your country. Ask what you could do for. Wait, what's the line again? Ask what?
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you.
I didn't know he was an idiot. I knew he was good looking, but he can't follow a line. Everything's ruined again.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news.
Come closer, I have good news.
Well, how's this for news? It's kind of fun when something just comes out of the blue and surprises you. And for me, this was a surprise. I was not expecting to see on our Jedi Council text thread a link to a new Tales of trailer. Tales of the Underworld. The trailer dropped today. The official announcement went up on StarWars.com that today Lucasfilm and Disney Plus announced Star Wars Tales of the Underworld, the third installment in the Tales anthology series, following Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire. Streaming on Disney Plus this Star Wars Day, May the 4th, 6-episode journey featuring former dark side assassin Asajj Ventress as she's given a new chance at life and must go on the run with an unexpected new ally, and outlaw Cad Bane as he faces his past when he confronts an old friend, now a marshal on the other side of the law. So, Jim, we had Ahsoka and Dooku. We had Barriss Offee and Morgan Elsbeth. And now we've got Asajj Ventress and Cad Bane getting the Tales of treatment.
Well, we knew something was coming from the Tales of sub-franchise. I am surprised by this one, though. There are some elements that we've heard via rumors, and I could share some of those rumors with you guys, but I think first we should look at the trailer and kind of break down some of the things that are happening in it. I've only seen the trailer once or twice at this point, but what I've seen of it really looks very, very good. And yeah, let's just let her roll. It's a 2-minute trailer. We could start it and stop it wherever we see something we want to talk about.
All right.
If you're up for it, Jason,
I'm up
do you
for
have
it.
the trailer?
Yeah, I got it. I got the trailer right here.
Okay, great.
Let's do it.
Great. All right.
Oh, by the way, I just learned today what those birds are called. Do you know what those birds are called?
No, it opens with 2 birds flying overhead like vultures.
Yeah.
I don't
like you
know
might
what
see
they're...
in an old Western, vultures flying over the hot sand. No, these are steel peckers. And and I was just thinking about what a bad omen it is when you find yourself being encircled by steel peckers.
Jeez, I can't believe they went with my old college nickname for a species in Star Wars. That's amazing. The steel pecker.
Steel peckers. All right, let's get back to this.
I can't wait.
Never can be too cautious with strangers out here.
All right, so just for a second, if we could stop it, it shows a sort of an abandoned area somewhere out on a grassy field. You see moisture evaporators and everything, but you see some shut down battle droids, and one of those peckers is on top of the battle droid's arm. The droid's still holding a gun.
Yeah, it's almost. I don't know if these are like. Are they setting these battle droids up like scarecrows or something? Maybe in the field.
Okay, maybe the inclusion of the bird kind of does push your thoughts into that area. But I was simply thinking to myself that these are battle droids that just were simply shut down after Anakin Skywalker destroyed that ship that shut down all the droids all over the galaxy. And so this indicates to us that this is clearly after... well, I mean, the battle droids, when did they... Oh, no, Anakin... I'm thinking about episode 1 when I should be thinking about Revenge of the Sith.
When
there
they
is
shut
a
down,
moment,
yeah.
There's a line of dialogue where they say that, everything has been shut down.
Right.
After Anakin goes and massacres all of the separatist leaders on Mustafar, then all of the droids get shut down. So you assume they just froze right in their spots, and that was it.
Oh, what a weird battlefield that would make for. Just a bunch of shut down battle droids. Yeah.
So we know that this is obviously after the prequel era, post-Clone Wars, clearly. And there are other clues that we see in this trailer that indicate what era it's in. We're even beyond the Bad Batch era because we see TK stormtroopers. We don't see the Macquarie stormtroopers that we saw being phased in with clone troopers still evident within the ranks of the Empire. We see just your typical original trilogy TK stormtroopers walking around. So that tells me that this is post Bad Batch as well. So after Asajj met up with Wrecker and Hunter and the gang, this is the follow-up story to that.
Yeah.
Never can be too cautious with strangers out here. Then again,
stormtroopers right there, and a hammerhead.
Yeah.
Lady Ventress.
All right, so we've got our first appearance of Ventress in this, and she's talking to what looks to be maybe an Imperial officer of some sort, or maybe with the high collar and the mustache.
Yes,
but he, maybe he's on the lam or something, or maybe the Empire is hiring Asajj Ventress. Wait a minute, we're not.
She is a bounty hunter.
She's a bounty hunter at this point. So yeah, so she could be being contracted.
I'm getting vibes of Yularen. Remember Yularen?
I was too, but he always wore white. So I would think they'd have to give us a better visual clue. Now we don't have Tom Kane to do the voice anymore.
Right. He's wearing white in Andor and in A New Hope.
Right.
But he was not wearing white when he was commanding that Star Destroyer in the Clone Wars.
I guess I just assumed by this point he'd have gotten his white Imperial uniform, but that could have been much later. Yeah, it could have been much later.
I think we're dealing in a time frame that is, like I said, shortly after Bad Batch. So maybe...
But before Rebels.
Oh, yeah, way before Rebels.
Yeah.
Like easily a decade before Rebels.
Okay.
Or a dozen years before Rebels. This would be like 2 or 3 years after the end of the Clone Wars.
Okay. So early Empire era. Okay. So this guy is talking about, or sees, calls her Lady Ventress.
Right.
Which is I'm trying to remember. Have we ever heard her called Lady Ventress before?
Oh, they do that now with the lady and
Lady Tano. That's a very,
Lady Tano. Yeah, that's a new one that kind of has emerged over the last 4 or 5 years. And now it's Lady Ventress.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Roll it.
She's got that hairdo again.
Yeah, the short hair.
Got a problem here.
I prefer bald Ventress. Let me just say.
Yeah, I'm kind of partial to that one too. All right, now we're flipping to the Cad Bane storyline.
There's Cad doing his classic.
What's the situation?
Now, isn't that like becoming sort of a Cad Bane line? Doesn't he say that in other...
The what's the situation?
Yeah. Doesn't that seem like that's something that might be emerging as a trademark line for Cad Bane? Because it feels like I've heard him say that maybe a couple of times prior to this. But in this trailer, it's really becoming something that really jumps out at me now. What's the situation? I don't know. Maybe he never said it before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm awfully partial to this one.
Well, hello there, little lady.
Hey, that's little lady. Little lady Ventress.
Oh, what a shame.
Oh, that's the wrong one.
That was Morello Evolve.
You're right.
Steven Stanton.
This is the one I meant.
How predictable.
There we go. Okay. A little slip of the thumb
Mika
here.
Futterman. She's amazing. She is amazing.
Yeah.
She was on that song, Too Fly for a White Guy. She was on that song.
Was she really?
Yeah. Who did Too Fly for the White Guy? Jason, just grab it. I know you got the CD there. Right
hold on.
Too Fly
it's right in between my Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra records.
I'm sorry. Too Fly for... That's where you keep your Offspring albums.
Yeah.
Because, they're the ones who did Too Fly for a White Guy. And Nika Futterman does the talky parts in there. So you hear a female voice interject, and that's Nika.
Okay.
So punch that song up, and you're hearing Asajj Ventress rocking out, essentially. But Cad Bane's back. And if anyone could point me in the direction of a Clone Wars episode or maybe even Book of Boba Fett when he says that line.
That is a Star Wars line, but it's a Grievous line.
Yes, I remember Grievous. Yes.
So I wonder if this is just, they love doing this in Star Wars animation where they just pull a line and just kind of throw it out there and try to make it a thing. So... But maybe we've heard Cad say that before. I don't know.
Maybe it just seems like a familiar line to me. So if anybody could point me in the direction of where he might have said that before, I'll look it up. Or if somebody can just tell me, idiot, he never said that before. That was Grievous. Because we could be going down that road now. That might be the path we're on here.
A return to a galaxy. Okay, so
kind of a green.
Yeah, so we've got a green Duros that Cad is being reunited with, and according to the breakdown from StarWars.com, it says that he faces his past when he confronts an old friend who's now a marshal on the other side of the law. So they were friends, both Duros, and one has gone to the side of law and order, and the other is still a criminal bounty hunter. And we see a little Duros. Or is this young
we see more
Cad?
of the Duros.
Could this be a flashback? We could see a juvenile Cad Bane here. It's got the right color.
I think that's exactly what we're looking at here. We're seeing a flashback story to Cad Bane. What made him such a bad egg?
Cad Baby.
Out. Baby Bane. We got Baby Belushi. Now we got Baby Bane.
All right, so this must be Mama Bane. Mama.
Oh, little lady.
Who are you?
I was Count Dooku's lead assassin.
Oh, okay, so we've got Asajj protecting this kid. Look at her. Look at all her medals that she won there back in the Clone Wars. She's got them all hung up.
Yeah, you think those are all the medals she won, or maybe
I don't know. I mean,
those are maybe they're trophies of war.
Oh, yeah, they could be trophies. People that maybe she killed.
Yeah,
good call. Yeah. But he's saying, "Oh,
I was Count Dooku."
She's like, "I was Count Dooku's assassin." A lot of action here going on. She's still got that patented yellow lightsaber. She looks like she's cutting down some TKs here, and we see this young kid who, again, according to the story, the information that was posted StarWars.com. Not trying to spoil anything for anybody, but they're leading with this is that he's an Order 66 survivor. And she's helping him. So could be that Imperial officer we saw earlier is contracting her to hunt this kid down, perhaps.
Maybe.
I don't want
stabbing a stormtrooper.
I don't want that life anymore, she says.
The music in this trailer is right out of Sicario.
It
really
right?
is. Yeah.
Oh, so let's take a look here. So this is the mysterious figure with a red lightsaber that appears, and
an Inquisitor, most likely.
I was just gonna say it, Jim. This is gonna be an Inquisitor.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal.
No, not at all. But it's because as she says,
how predictable.
Yeah, that there's going to be an Inquisitor here because that's the throwaway enemy of the moment. You know, they come in tissue boxes.
Right.
Filoni just pulls them out, as needed, blows his nose on it, and we get another one that pops.
We get a
up.
new Inquisitor just like that. Yeah, they are very dime a dozen. So you see, then she's having a showdown with the red-bladed, who we think is Inquisitor, and then Cad Bane's having a showdown with another Duros, and. This is the thing about Cad Bane, though, is how often are we going to tap into that trope of standing out in the middle of the street, standing 10 paces away from each other, draw first. We already saw it in Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
And it was used, I thought it was used to, with great execution.
Yeah.
When he had the showdown with Cobb Vanth. That was good. And then, of course, we've seen that animatic from the unproduced Clone Wars episode that features a very similar showdown, again, to what we're seeing here in the Tales of the Underworld trailer, where he's having a showdown with Boba Fett, a fully armored Boba Fett, voiced by Daniel Logan. Daniel had already done the vocal parts for it, and the animatics were already completed. They just never finished the episode.
And it was it was going to illustrate how he got the dent in the helmet, wasn't it?
Right. Right, the dent in the helmet, which we always thought that he just spray painted Jango Fett's helmet different colors, and it had that dent from when Jango banged his head into the Slave One hatch door in Episode 2. But then George Lucas devised a story for Clone Wars where Boba took Jango's helmet and rigged it with explosives to lure in Mace Windu. And once Windu got close to it, the helmet exploded. And Filoni even confronted George on this and said, but George, the dent on the helmet, that was supposed to be the same helmet Boba wears. And George just said, everything's not so precious, Filoni.
The deal with Jango Fett's helmet. A lot of people had they had jumped to the conclusion that Boba was wearing Jango Fett's helmet, however modified and repainted, when we saw him in Empire Strikes Back. But yet that helmet was clearly destroyed.
Boom. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that definitely was Jango Fett's helmet, the one that young Boba was shown holding up to his head at the end of Attack of the Clones.
Well, all I can tell you is, according to George, that is the case. And I pointed out exactly what you guys did about the dent and everything, etc. But, to George, I think the idea that Boba would want the last thing that Mace Windu to see be that helmet, because it would bring the recognition to Mace of who Boba was. Bottom line, Boba can't fight Mace directly because Mace, he's a little kid. I mean, that's just, come on, it's ridiculous. So he has to go about it in a very subversive way. And, George wanted him to plant these bombs and explosives, which I thought was a really great way for Boba to kind of overcome the fact that Mace Windu is this incredibly well-trained warrior. And that was evidently Jango's helmet. Now, I mean, I know there's a denting of the helmet in Attack of the Clones. Sometimes you can see that in a movie, they'll try to make all those connections very implicit, not realizing that George wants to do all this extra material later and that he has a better way of trying to make these connections happen. And something as small as a dent in a helmet, isn't enough to disrupt George's sense of overall good storytelling.
So Dave wanted then to establish where that dent came from on Boba's helmet.
Yeah.
So he featured that showdown with Cad Bane and Boba Fett standing out in the middle of the dusty street, and they draw at the same time and they both fall. And then you see Boba's helmet sort of roll by his body, and it's got that smoking dent in the front of it, thus the dented helmet. We never knew what happened to Boba. Obviously, Boba survived because he has to make it to Empire Strikes Back. And Cad Bane obviously survives because he makes it to the Book of Boba Fett, which happens after the original trilogy. So,
but we never did see how Boba gets the Slave One back.
That's one loose end that's always driven me crazy. Hondo Naka had it. And so he had to have gotten it back.
Why did I think Ayla Sakura had it? She didn't have it. It was Hondo. It was Hondo, right. Okay.
Ayla was on... No, Ayla Sakura.
Not Ayla Sakura. I'm sorry.
You're thinking of Aura Singh.
Aura Singh. Got my A characters mixed up. Yes, Aura Singh.
By the way, I've been going through my Star Wars collection, and sure, it's thousands. It's like 3,000 action figures, and they're all out on display. Everyone can look at them. I am missing an Aura Singh action figure. There is a variation where she's all dressed in black.
Yes.
And this action figure was released around between 2008 and 2010. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if it's worth anything or anything, but I've looked everywhere for it. That sucker is gone.
But you remember owning it. You remember having it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah. So I don't want to jump to any conclusions or anything, but I'm going to keep looking for it. But I can't find it anywhere. So that one and my vintage Lando General both mysteriously disappeared.
Oh, I hate to hear about a vintage figure disappearing, especially.
Yeah.
Yikes.
And that Lando one, that doesn't come cheap either. But, I just got to keep my eye on people when I show off the collection. So
yeah,
I think I know who my friends are, but you just never know. So that kind of sucks.
It does. It really does.
So, I mean, it's kind of fresh news. I sort of really just discovered it over the weekend, and I'm not happy about it.
Now you did make a big move. You made a huge move of thousands of figures from one room of the house to another room. So it's possible.
I know I did. It's possible, however unlikely,
that
they'll find a weakness and exploit it.
Has eaten your action figure.
I did have growing up, I had a Labrador Retriever that ate a lot of Star Wars action figures. That dog had a taste for Han Solo, Hoth, and Yoda.
Yeah.
How many Yodas did I see go through the Labrador's digestive system and end up in the backyard in a less than desirable state?
I have I'm sure. I have a vintage Ben Kenobi Obi-Wan figure that has the end of his foot chewed off by a Cocker Spaniel. But it's my childhood Kenobi, so it's the one I'm keeping. Jim, you were the one. I remember seeing your collection for the very first time, and you've got. I mean, most of your figures are in great shape, but the ones that were from your childhood, like it was one of the first times I think I saw someone proudly displaying worn, played with figures. And I just always assumed that in order to have them on display, they had to be perfect right out of the box, you know? And that made such an impression on me. And now I love looking at my Ben Kenobi figure with the chewed off foot. I love it because it has a memory, and that's the one that I played with. So it means a lot more.
And they're totally one of a kind in that the scuffs and marks and missing appendages, it's all part of it, you know. It makes it unique. It makes it what it is. So Cad Bane, he's in a showdown yet again with some random Duros, and I predict the Duros will lose.
Wow. Okay. Do you mean? Wait a minute.
I'm calling it.
You're calling
the green one.
The green, because you said Cad Bane locked in with another Duros, and I predict that the Duros will lose. And there's two Duros.
The unnamed Duros. Let me be specific here, Swank. Jason's got a whole scorecard there. He has to make sure it's all just done correctly. The unnamed Duros who we're looking at there.
Unnamed
Go back to Cad, though. Can we take a look at Cad?
Yeah.
In that showdown? Look, do you notice anything about Cad right there? Do you notice anything about him? What do you notice about Cad that might be a little different? Do you see it?
He doesn't he have
it's something you're not seeing. It's something you don't see.
Yeah.
Those tubes.
The
that connect to his cheeks. They're not there. So maybe as a result of this gunfight, he has to start wearing that breathing apparatus. We do know those tubes are removable, though, because when he went undercover, once he went undercover as a clone
didn't he have those tubes in the Clone Wars?
Yes, he did. But when he went undercover as a clone trooper, he removed them. He was not wearing them. You see him escape.
Oh, I see. So they're not. His life doesn't depend on those being in. They might just make.
But we always see him wearing it. We always see him wearing them, except that one time when he was impersonating a clone trooper. I think it was like season 2 or 3 of Clone Wars. But here we see him just standing out in the middle of his street, having a showdown with another Duros, and he's got no tubes. Dude, you left your tubes at home.
You've heard of 2 tubes. This is no tubes.
Or he doesn't use them yet.
Yes, this could be a flashback to maybe the first falling out that these guys might have had.
It could be. It could be. But, I mean, if this is after the Clone Wars and after the Bad Batch, then he just simply isn't wearing them.
He's not wearing the
situation. Right. Because it has been established he can take them off when he wants to. He also has those jet boots, too. Don't forget that. I've always thought that was a killer Cad Bane feature.
The jet boots.
Jet boots, yeah.
Ooh, let's get a better look at this Inquisitor or Sith or something here. If we can get a nice.
It looks like a Nick-2, I think.
Nick-2, maybe.
I don't know. It's hard to tell. He just has the glowing red eyes. He's wearing something of a medieval type helmet.
Yeah, you might be right on that.
His face is covered up. It's just for some reason
it's very pruny, very liney. I bet it's an Inquisitor.
Yeah. Well, he's got the glowing Sith eyes.
Right.
That's a feature of the Inquisitors.
The Inquisitors have the, I guess they do have the, they have the red eyes.
A lot of quick cross cuts of all sort of action going on here.
What you did.
We are still seeing Clone Wars era ships like those Republic gunships. We saw some of those. So those are still definitely evident. Lots of guys on speeders.
Oh, yeah, there's the gunship.
So not far off from the Clone Wars. Oh, he's got, like you said, this is an Order 66 survivor that she appears to be fighting alongside with. He has a blue lightsaber.
He looks to be a teenager, maybe 15, 16 years old, something like that, maybe.
Most importantly, what are his pronouns?
I'm sure we'll find out. Tune into Wikipedia in a few weeks. Here's these bikers. I don't know if they're pirates or...
Cool speeder.
On the speeders. I was just thinking maybe pirates. Biker gang.
It's such a blur. It's so all blurred. But then we see Asajj in that Jedi. Now they're on a sort of land speeder kind of thing, battling with all these other guys chasing her on speeder bikes. And then back to Cad Bane. Still without tubes. The tube watch.
Yeah.
Was that Highsinger? The droid Highsinger standing to the left of Cad Bane? Is that who I saw there? I think it is. It's so hard to tell. You only just see a partial
tiny little bit.
But to me, that looked like the Highsinger droid who was voiced by David Acord. And I know was a big favorite of Filoni's. I had been told that Highsinger was going to be featured a little more heavily in latter seasons of the Clone Wars. That ended up getting scrapped. So he may have been in that Cad Bane versus Boba Fett episode. It's possible because other members of that bounty hunter gang were also present in those animatics. We know Latz Ratzi is going to be on this show, voiced by Claire Grant. She's going to be back. And Corey Bane, of course, will be back as Cad Bane. Corey Burton. Back as Cad Bane.
Look, I was excited because it's new Star Wars. But I have to tell you, if I were forced to choose a couple of characters to see featured in a Tales of anthology season, it wouldn't be Cad Bane and Asajj Ventress, to be honest with you. I just feel like those are characters that they pop up all the time. You know, there's not a whole lot of mystery for me around those characters. I also don't think that in the case of Cad Bane, his origin story of how he turned into a bad guy is really all that important. When you also think about some of the other stories and some of the other tales that they could tell. I mean, we've speculated over the, since we saw this, there could be Tales of the Bounty Hunters, Tales of the Republic, Tales of the New Republic, Tales of the First Order, Tales of the Sith, Tales of the Cantina. I remember one time we talked about that. There was a
fun
Tales of Jabba's Palace book that came out. Why not do Tales of Jabba's Palace and give us a story about how Bib Fortuna was able to secure power after Jabba the Hutt was killed.
That's a loose end, I just want to know how Bib Fortuna survived the sail barge explosion.
Right.
I mean, last we saw him, he was on board that thing.
Or create some synergy around Andor. Give us a Bail Organa story and maybe a Saw Gerrera story or something like that. Or go way. Can you imagine if they did like a Tales of Rogue Squadron? And we got to see
that one's been talked about. That has been talked about forever. Tales of. I mean, I remember back in the day, my God, before the Clone Wars ever debuted or anything, that there was talk of a Saturday morning animated Rogue Squadron.
Just
show.
Seems like Star Wars animation is just stuck in this era, and it's like that's all we're gonna get are these recycled Clone Wars or Rebels characters. I loved the Morgan Elsbeth story just because it felt new and fresh and characters that we've never seen animated before. Characters, kind of fresh out of live action. So I really thought that was cool. Also thought that the Dooku story was amazing, and in bringing in a young Qui-Gon and going back to prequel era. This just feels like the same old to me.
I feel you there. I do. It's like Dave Filoni scratching an itch or something. But I mean, if he has stories to tell about these characters that are worth telling, then I think it's something worthy of pursuit, as opposed to having some studio executive go sit down and make a story about Rogue Squadron right now. This is coming. It seems like it might be coming from a place of authenticity and integrity when it comes from Filoni. He's scratching an itch. He has these stories to tell. But I also hear what you're saying when it's like, okay, we've had a lot of stories with Cad Bane. We've had a lot of stories with Asajj Ventress, even recently for both characters. Cad showed up, of course, in Bad Batch and in Book of Boba Fett. Asajj showed up in Bad Batch. So isn't there some more unused territory we can go into? Isn't there like some bolder swings we can be making with this type of program? I think absolutely. But again, if there's a strong story that needs to be told that Dave Filoni has to tell, keep in mind, Dave is coming at this with much more fingerprints all over it than he has in recent animated series like The Bad Batch or Star Wars Resistance. Filoni not only created this whole thing, but he is the supervising director of this season of Star Wars Tales of the Underworld. Dave is back in the supervising director seat, which he hasn't done in animation, I don't think, since Rebels went off the air. So he's supervising director, he created the thing, and he's also an executive producer, along with some familiar names, Athena Portillo and Carrie Beck, Josh Rhimes, same old names. So
it's obvious that these are a couple of Filoni favorite characters, Asajj Ventress and Cad Bane. So it's no mystery there. So Jim, Tales of the Ewoks? Yes? No?
Well, there's already been an Ewoks animated series and two standalone television movies. I think the Ewoks
they've gone to that well already. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. They've been played out. And they don't want to do something where the characters aren't speaking English.
Exactly.
Not for animation.
Shades of the Holiday special right there. We got a little bit about that coming up soon.
That is coming up.
Hello, this is Nika Futterman, and I play Asajj Ventress. You're listening to
Rebel Force Radio.
The galaxy is listening. Come to the dark side.
I do have a couple of these rumors. I just want to go through them real quickly. We've been sitting on these. And you heard us, we mentioned here before the possibility of a new animated series coming from Lucasfilm, the same creatives that worked on shows like Rebels, like the Clone Wars, like these Tales of anthology series. We've heard about that. And you've also heard us talk about a standalone anime series based on the Star Wars Visions character, the Jedi Ronin.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been talking about that. We actually have another source coming at us that does back that up. Star Wars Visions, Ronin's Path, full series by Kamikaze Duga, 8 episodes coming next year, along with Visions Volume 4 coming next year. And these are things that could possibly be announced at Star Wars Celebration Japan, at the big 20th anniversary Star Wars animation or Lucasfilm animation, whatever they're calling it, that panel with Filoni. You know, we heard a couple months ago that it's possible. We heard from somebody who actually saw artwork for the Jedi Ronin standalone show. But there was confusion on my end because I thought, well, he's seeing stuff for Star Wars Visions Volume 3, clearly. But that might not be the case now that we have another source coming at us saying that Star Wars Visions Ronan's Path, they even have a title for it. So they're saying that might be coming next year, and it could be announced at Star Wars Celebration Japan. Now, the other news about a series being produced by the same crew at Lucasfilm who did Clone Wars and Rebels comes at us with this rumor, which may be something that's kind of bringing in news about this Tales of the Underworld thing and confusing it with something else. But this rumor says, again, like I said, this is only rumor, all right? But this says that a new series called Star Wars Underworlds, heavily inspired by George Lucas's original live-action show, Star Wars Underworld, the one that Rick McCallum was talking about recently, the one that Ronald D. Moore was talking about recently, George Lucas's scrapped original live-action Star Wars show that never happened. Heavily inspired but not an exact recreation, premieres this August. 16 episodes. It'll be a 16-episode season premiering in August. The main plot... See, this is why I think there might be some confusion with Tales of the Underworld, but who knows? The main plot is Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos rescuing Maul's 15-year-old nephew, Day, from the Night Sisters and Crimson Dawn, along with the fallout from all of that. Okay, well, we do know there's loose ends with Darth Maul and his rise as a criminal warlord, or as an underworld warlord, I should say.
Well, and Jim, Lucasfilm promised us that they would answer the question about the fate of Asajj Ventress and how she survived what everyone believed was her death in that book with about her and Quinlan Vos. Putting Quinlan Vos and Asajj together in a project like this, when they've already signaled that they were going to fill us in on how all that happened, that seems to jive.
So it says there's going to be lots of tie-ins to other projects like Solo, Jedi Fallen Order, Outlaws, Book of Boba Fett, and Star Wars Rebels. The main focus of the story, Asajj, Quinlan, Day, and a droid are the leads. Maul, Crimson Dawn, and Day's father, plus older brother, are the main villains. Oh, so
wait a minute.
So I guess
this is Maul's.
So what this is saying,
nephew,
right? So his father then is maybe associated with Crimson Dawn. That would be Darth Maul's brother. Darth Maul had a brother. I thought it was Savage Opress, but I guess there's another one.
Right, I was going to say there's another one. There is another.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of a questionable rumor, I think. There's also talk about Tales of the Light Side and Tales of the Dark Side being series of shorts. The Light Side one is supposed to drop this fall, Dark Side next year. It appears that May the 4th is the date that they like to drop these Tales of series. So again, ladies and gentlemen, take this all with a grain of salt. The thing that really captured my attention as far as these rumors go is the fact that this is another source saying that there will be a anime Jedi Ronin series. So when I heard that, I was like, well, shoot, we heard that from someone else. But for all I know, this person is just getting the information from us to begin with, and everything's just going around the circle in a game of telephone right now. And then here's the other one. Here's the other one. Lucasfilm Animation is launching an open animation competition called Skywalker Academy. At Star Wars Celebration, they'll talk a lot about how animation is easier than ever before to make in your own home. And they will be calling on solo artists and small indie studios worldwide to submit 60-second Star Wars-themed animated shorts, and it'll be a competition. The first round of Skywalker Academy shorts, they will be created internally at Lucasfilm and ILM by younger junior animators. And so that will sort of set the pace for this competition. They'll be minute-long little shorts, and they say that The same day as the panel at Star Wars Celebration will be the launch of a dedicated Star Wars animation YouTube channel featuring those shorts created internally. And they say a new Tales short will be screened at Celebration. So I guess that would be from the Tales of the Underworld. We don't know. Finalists for the Skywalker Academy competition will be uploaded to the Star Wars Animation YT channel, YouTube channel, with revenue shared 60-40 between the creators and Lucasfilm. Oh, that could be a good deal. The creators of the top performing shorts on the YouTube channel will then be given a larger budget and a direct professional partnership with Lucasfilm to turn their 60-second shorts into fully produced longer shorts to be featured as part of a future Visions volume. Now, all of that seems like kind of realistic to me. And other people have told us that this seems like it could be legit information. The thing about again, I'm skeptical about a lot of it. I was skeptical about getting news that the Jedi Ronin was going to get his own anime series. But here we're getting a second source telling us, yes, that's true. Star Wars Visions Ronin's Path, 8 episodes, launching next year. No date attached to that. But, hey, like I said, take it all with a grain of salt. We're just sharing with you guys some stuff we're hearing here.
It is possible that this Tales of that we're going to get on May 4th could lead into this speculated series that they're saying is going to come out in August. 16 episodes in August, the Star Wars Underworlds. I mean, I could potentially see that happening. If they're going to do a whole Star Wars animation panel at Star Wars Celebration, you would think that they would want to have a couple of things up their sleeve. They've already announced Star Wars Tales of the Underworld. So that's not going to be a surprise for those folks. They will, as these rumors indicate, show something. So yeah, they'll probably show, maybe they'll show the whole Cad Bane arc, or they'll show the whole Asajj arc to the folks at Celebration in Japan. But outside of that, and maybe announcing this Ronin thing, I would think they'd want to have something else. So announcing this Star Wars Underworlds series, if that's what it's going to be, maybe, or more Tales of. But that would really break the model of the Tales. The Tales of, they come, they go, and that's it. They don't use them as pilots for other series. But who knows? I do think that when I first read this and I looked at it and looked at the characters, Maul, Quinlan Vos, Asajj Ventress, expanding Maul's family, it just had Dave Filoni written all over it to me. So I just thought, this makes sense. This sounds like something Filoni would come up with.
It sure does. It sure does. And so, I mean, again, take it with all the grains of salt that you prefer. We're not confirming any of this, but getting two sources telling us there's going to be an anime Jedi Ronin show, I think, is noteworthy. And it leads me to then look at all of these other rumors and say, well, maybe there is really some fire behind this smoke. And we'll find out when the Lucasfilm Animation's 20th anniversary panel happens. The way they're selling this is join Dave Filoni and Athena Portillo as they celebrate 20 years of Lucasfilm Animation's critically acclaimed stories and beloved characters, including a sneak peek at what's to come. So they're definitely going to be announcing something. Obviously, Tales of the Underworld doesn't air till May the 4th, so attendees at Star Wars Celebration might get a sneak preview of that show. They might be showing some of those shorts.
They did that with, they've done that at Celebrations, with the show, the premiere episode or the first couple episodes of a new series or something like that. So
Yeah, I remember when they announced Rex was coming back to Star Wars Rebels. I believe they even showed a full episode of that at Star Wars Celebration, just accompanying the announcement. Because I saw Dee Baker after that. We were doing the Smugglers audio drama. And so I was hanging out backstage with Dee Baker for quite a while. And every person that walked by him, he's like, they say, "Hey, Dee, how's it going?" He'd say, "Rex is back." To everyone, Rex is back. Rex is back. Rex is back. I mean, he was so jazzed by it and so happy he could talk to people about it that, you know, the lady came to clean out the garbage can and he walked over to her. "Hey, Rex is back." She's like, "What the hell is he talking?" But it was. He was very excited about that. So, and I know they screened something at that thing, but I think we were hosting a stage at that time, so we didn't get to see it and everything. But we know that they've screened things at Star Wars Celebration before they get premiered, and so I'm sure they'll be showing a clip. They'll be showing a clip of Underworld, the Tales of the Underworld for sure.
You know who else is back? Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is back, baby.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, he's come back in the form of a walk-around character. It's Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland. This is exclusive just to the California park. And it's all part of the Seasons of the Force event, which kicked off on March 28th, runs through May 11th. And so it sounds to me, Jim, like this is a limited thing. I don't know if they're just testing the waters to see how popular the character is. Could be. But the way they're promoting it, March 28th through May 11th, only at the Anaheim Park at Disneyland in California. No announcements regarding him appearing at Walt Disney World in Florida. When we talk about the popularity, I think this video sort of speaks for itself. So there is a video.
we have a clip here. This is from the folks at Laughing Place. They do a lot of Disney park coverage, and they do a pretty good job of it too, I must say. But they were there for the Luke Skywalker debut last Friday at Galaxy's Edge in Anaheim. And Luke actually interacts with them, and they have it all on camera, and let's watch the magic.
Have you seen the Jedi text?
The text?
Yes, I need the Jedi text in order to rebuild the Jedi Order.
Oh, last I heard, certain Rey was in possession of the Jedi text.
I'm not sure I know who.
No, you're not who Rey is.
Strong presence here.
Okay.
Maybe our paths will cross one day.
Maybe.
Isn't that right, Archie?
Have you visited Octo, the planet Octo?
The Force does work mysteriously.
Maybe that's where you need to
You seem to be very knowledgeable. I could use your insight.
Yeah, okay.
We must get going. I must continue my mission.
All right. You got it.
I love this guy. I love this guy. I saw people giving him some crap online. You know, oh, couldn't they find somebody that looks more like Mark Hamill? Hey, you know what, folks? Kenner and Hasbro have been trying to sculpt Mark Hamill's face for 50 years, and none of them can do it. He's just got one of those faces, okay? So you're not. What do you expect? Sebastian Stan to roll in there for a few days at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge? I thought the kid does a great job. I love the costume, and I, for one, have, and I've been saying this for a long time, I have so much love and reverence for these characters. They're bigger than the actors who play them. And as the franchise gets older, we've got to be open to other people and other faces inhabiting these characters. So I love it. This is what they should have done from the beginning of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, is have these familiar, iconic characters walking around. I'm all for it.
Well, I think he's clearly supposed to be the Luke we see in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett.
For sure, yeah.
He seems kind of young and fresh-faced to me, though. And what's up with the British accent? I mean, what is up with that British accent? He's doing a British accent.
He's not doing a British accent.
Have you seen the Jedi texts? Yes, you're very knowledgeable. I will have to. I mean, he's totally doing it. Play it back. He's enunciating.
Accent. he's enunciating, but it's not. I don't
Luke
think it's a
doesn't
British
enunciate.
accent.
Luke whines. You have to whine. Where are the Jedi texts? I need to find the Jedi texts. Oh, come on, kid. I mean, give me 2 hours with this kid. I'll get him. I'll get him doing this the right way. Plus, I think his hair is too brown.
You sound awfully knowledgeable.
You sound awfully knowledgeable. Oh, well, thanks a lot, Obi-Wan. Yeah, it's just the voice just isn't working for me.
Is the hair a little brown? Okay,
Too brown.
I'll give you the hair a little bit.
And parted on the wrong side
enough, and it's. Oh my God! Now we're really picking nits out of the wig.
He's got the eyes. He's got good blue eyes. But I think our friend Baby Belushi put it best. He took a screen grab of this Luke Skywalker. I'm doing the quotes when I say Luke Skywalker too, by the way. He took a screen grab of just his face, like this, like what you're showing here right now on the screen, like from his neck up. And he said, if I showed you this picture, would you ever in a million years say, oh, that's Luke Skywalker? Answer honestly, Jason. If I showed you this randomly, it looks like some kid's high school ID photo. Should be older. And
I love
British.
having Luke Skywalker at Galaxy's Edge. I love it.
Well, I think it's great. And you're right about one thing. Big crowd of people surrounding him. But this was his debut, and they had all the internet people and influencers there to crowd around him and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, give the guy 6 months at Galaxy's Edge, and next thing you'll see him with one of those little brooms and those dustpans on a stick, walking around sweeping up everything. Have you seen the Jedi text?
He's sitting on a bench eating a churro.
It's my lightsaber churro. And he's still speaking with the British accent. That's a British accent. Just play the video.
Boy, the costume looks
just for
good.
a second and listen to his
Okay,
voice.
all right,
He's doing a British accent.
Here we go.
Maybe our paths will cross one day.
Maybe.
Isn't that right?
Maybe all paths will cross one day.
The Force does work mysteriously.
Maybe that's where you need to
Shut up, R2. We're trying to hear the British accent.
Yeah, that was hard to hear.
We must get going. I must continue my mission.
All right. You got it.
We must get going. He's doing
there's definitely an affectation. I'm not willing to say accent,
Yes.
but I'll say there's an affectation to the voice. I want to be supportive of the kid. I'd get his autograph in my little Disney autograph book. Okay, so Jim, this is the first time. Oh no, that's not true. I was going to say this is the first time that we've seen a completely human without leku and makeup. But Ray, she doesn't have any
Ray is there.
leku, and that Ray is great that they have there at Galaxy's Edge. She pulls it off.
All right.
Yeah.
Oddly enough,
like
she does
this
not use a British accent. So I don't know what's going on over there.
What's going on? Well, Leia had a British accent for the first few lines in A New Hope when she confronts Tarkin. But we've retconned that to say that's an affectation that she puts in her voice when she is talking to someone at Tarkin's level. She has to put on the airs of royalty.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luke has no heirs of royalty. He's a farm boy from Tatooine who wants to get to Tashi Station. That's what he should be asking people. Have you been to Tashi Station? Did they run out of power converters? I gotta go there. That'd be great. Now that'd be authentic. Put him in a shorty robe, and you want to talk about a crowd? Oh, he'll gather a crowd in that shorty robe. Oh my.
Once, when I was a kid, my dad left my Luke Skywalker doll in an airplane, and I was so angry.
Which Luke? Shorty robe or dress wax?
Shorty robe.
Oh, my.
Rebel Force Radio.
Okay, let's talk about Bruce Villanch. Bruce is a sitcom writer, occasional actor, and he put out this great book. It seemed like a bad idea at the time. And it's about these variety shows and comedy specials that he worked on in the 70s and 80s. It's so funny. The Paul Lynde Halloween Hour, the Brady Bunch Variety Show.
Wow.
And, of course, Bruce was a writer on the Star Wars Holiday Special. Now, he comes at it all from a very different perspective than anyone we've actually heard talk about the Holiday Special. He talks about it, or actually about anyone who was behind the creation of the Holiday Special, I should say. He talks about it very differently. He doesn't just like dwell on what went wrong and how it could have been fixed or why it went wrong necessarily. He seems like he knew it was all going wrong from the first moment, and he was on board just to get this sucker on the air and get paid. I think that's really the vibe I get from Bruce.
Get a paycheck. Right.
He peppers the whole book with all of these great stories, and he goes on tangents, and it's just very entertaining, especially in the audiobook format. So, it seemed like a bad idea at the time. The Worst TV Shows in History and Other Things I Wrote by Bruce Villanch. It just came out. And in this first clip, we're going to hear him talking a little bit about the Star Wars Holiday Special, specifically his initial conversations with George Lucas and the Wookiees that we see in the show and the whole concept of Life Day. Bruce talks about it.
The one meeting I remember having with George and the other writers was cordial but serious. He told us he had 10 Star Wars stories written, 6 of which he intended to film. He had worked up what we call a Bible, which is the story, or saga in this case, from beginning to end. Interestingly, the first Star Wars movie was part 4 of the story, which everyone now knows, but which at the time struck us as one of the more bizarre ideas ever pitched, topping even Howard the Duck. However, it was not as bizarre as the story he wanted us to tell. The 4 non-movie stories he had in his head were tangential to the saga. Think of the latter-day entries Solo and Rogue One. 3 of them had been committed to other media, and the last one was his idea for our show. Curiously, it revolved around the Wookiees. George had high hopes, or perhaps he was being funny, it was hard to tell, of Life Day being absorbed into the culture like so many other Star Wars elements. This was not to be, and our show may have had something to do with that. But George hasn't given up, even though fans have created a Star Wars holiday of their own. May the 4th be with you. Nevertheless, he persists. There was a mention of Life Day on the first season of The Mandalorian in 2019, and the following year, there was an entirely new Star Wars holiday special starring Lego characters, including a Lego Daisy Ridley, who looked a lot like Rosie O'Donnell.
What's interesting about that clip is Bruce seems to think that George Lucas is still creating Star Wars stories like The Mandalorian and Star Wars Lego. He says, George persists, and then he brings up those 2 examples, as if thinking that George is the one still fueling this idea. Maybe George is. I don't know. Maybe that was part of the paperwork when he sold it to Disney. Listen, I'll be hands off everything. I promise, except for one thing, Life Day. I'm going to make occasional demands when it comes to streaming series and Lego animated shows. But, look, George always thought Life Day
That's just the type of thing that you put in the contract to make sure that everybody reads it.
Yeah, right. Like Van Halen and their concert writers where they would say no green M&Ms or whatever. So maybe.
What struck me with that clip is that Bruce talks about this Bible containing 10 Star Wars stories, 6 that would become films, and then 4 that were tangential stories, and one of them is the nucleus for what would become the holiday special, this Life Day thing. So does that mean that Bruce and the other writers actually got their hands on this Bible that George had created?
Maybe. Or at least he sat down with them and may have exposed them to certain excerpts or anything. I think one of those stories might have been Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And but I mean, who knows? He had this idea for this Chewbacca's family living on Kashyyyk, and decided that the venue in which that story was going to be told would be in a television variety show. But I don't think George knew what he was getting into when it came to television variety shows. I don't think George was really aware of things like the Donnie and Marie show or the Bob Hope specials and things like that. I just don't think that was on George's radar. He's a film guy. I don't think he's like a guy who would sit around in the 70s watching crappy television, but so I just don't think he realized what he was signing off on at the end of the day. And Bruce continues to talk more about the holiday special, specifically one of those scenes which we've been kind of buzzing about for a long time, the sort of weird moment when Chewbacca's father, Itchy, puts on his virtual headset and watches a very sexy, sultry, seductive, and borderline pornographic musical number. And so we know that went to Diane Carroll. Diane Carroll performed in that. But there was another superstar who was being considered for the performer to be featured in that sequence. A superstar, Jason. But it didn't happen, and Bruce reveals who that superstar is in this next clip.
I remember reading a science fiction novel, and I didn't read many, and only read this one because the person who gave it to me said it was written in the 30s and had something in it I would like. The something was a kind of helmet that you wore, and it somehow dug into your brain and took you on whatever sort of trip you wanted to go on. Let's say you wanted to fly. It would make that happen, only without you ever leaving your recliner. It was a dream machine, what would later become known as virtual reality. I, of course, immediately glommed on to the pornographic opportunities it offered. Greater minds than mine went other places. Either George read that book, which I later found out was a minor classic, or great minds do operate on a single track because he came in with this idea of a virtual reality helmet, which unfortunately we put to work as an opportunity for another performance that looked like a hologram. Part of the reason it did was that the helmet was on Itchy, a horny Wookiee, and the fantasy it plugged into was Cher, until it wasn't. The idea was for Cher to do a sexy number that would give the old silverback a shot of testosterone, or his species equivalent. But Cher begged off, not feeling up to it, or maybe just not feeling like being a fetish object for an old Wookiee. Not that a thing like that would ever get in her way. She's fearless and fierce. Also fearless and fierce was her replacement, the sublime Diane Carroll.
It could have been Cher. It could have been Cher. And it's 1978. This is around the time of the breakup with her and Sonny.
Yeah.
And
she and Sonny broke up.
She was in trouble financially, so might have been the right time to get her to do something like this.
The Sonny and Cher show was the biggest show on TV, and they break up. And so what happens next is the Cher show and the Sonny show. I mean, they split up and got their own shows. It was
Even
the
their
weirdest
show got
thing
a
that ever
divorce.
happened. But then, to just like go from the Sonny and Cher show into their own shows is just like only in the 70s. And it's interesting, though, when you think about it, Diane Carroll is wearing wardrobe that is very reminiscent of something that Cher would have worn on TV back in the 70s, with the beads hanging
didn't
down.
Bob Mackie do the costumes for the?
Yes.
Yeah, Bob Mackie did the costumes, so he did all of Cher's costumes.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if, and maybe that was the connection. Maybe they got Mackie to do the wardrobe, and they said, "Hey, we'd love to have Cher do this number for us." Who knows?
That could have been. That could have been how one thing, how the dominoes started falling, and then Cher said no way, and so they said, well, let's call Diane Carroll, get her in here, and so they did, and Diane Carroll appeared in the show, and Bruce talks a little bit about Diane and her performance.
Diane poured herself into the costume and assumed a position she had never assumed before, sex siren. She, of course, was the epitome of elegance in everything she did. Yet I know she loved cutting loose in this weird number, playing to an audience of one, this thirsty carpet with eyes ogling her in his dreams. During a break, I mentioned to her that this was undoubtedly the first instance of an interracial, interspecies romance on network television. And every time I saw her for decades afterwards, I would ask her if she had received that NAACP Image Award that I knew was rightfully hers. She became such an icon of style and taste that even when the special surfaced on the internet, people didn't believe she really was in it. In subsequent decades, some of the keyboard warriors have noted that they felt the number was quasi-pornographic and wondered how we got away with it on a family show. So I looked at it again. Frankly, I don't know how we got away with it. We had a big star, and it was a fantasy, and she was doing the number to a guy in a gorilla zoot suit. Yet it was always a tease, never meant to be lusty or lewd. And as noted, some of us were chemically altered, maybe even the network censor.
He says that an awful lot throughout his recounting of the making of the Star Wars Holiday Special, that apparently the entire writer's room and a lot of the cast and crew were completely chemically altered throughout the entire production process. And you get that vibe off of just about any production you see entertainment show-wise coming out of the 70s to begin with. So, yeah.
It's a cliche,
time.
But how many times have you heard someone say it was the 70s?
Yeah, right. What are you going to do?
It was the 70s.
And yeah, so his recollection of the making of the Star Wars Holiday Special is really peppered with that sort of vibe. It was the 70s. And here he makes another great revelation about the Star Wars Holiday Special that I never knew before Bruce released this book. He's talking about Carrie Fisher and Carrie Fisher singing. She sings this really awful song at the end of the holiday special. It's basically lyrics to the main theme of Star Wars somehow. Nothing really syncs up either. I always got the feeling Carrie was singing to a different track on the set, and then when they took it during post-production and editing, they added the Star Wars music underneath. It's such a bizarre sounding song that I'm sure you can find on YouTube. It's incredible. So he talks about Carrie, but that song that I'm talking about was not the first song choice. They were going to take it maybe a little bit more seriously, and they were going to tap into a legendary talent's catalog of music to choose a song for Carrie to sing and to play it a little more straight. So Bruce talks a little bit about that in this next clip.
Carrie, who I met when she was in the chorus of her mother, Debbie Reynolds, as if you didn't know, Broadway musical triumph Irene, 1973 and 74, had literally skyrocketed to fame in the first, or fourth, if you are a Lucasite, film in the Star Wars saga. She wasn't thrilled about being on the show, but she had been told that there would be a musical element, and she was eager to be a part of it. Desperate, almost. She really wanted to be a singing actress like her mother, but not like her mother, if you catch my drift. Carrie already had plenty of edge. So did Debbie, one of the last of the old-school studio contract players, but she had been trained never to show it. Carrie wanted Leia to sing, specifically something by Joni Mitchell, maybe with a guitar, in that white dress, shades of the singing nun, but the Mitchell camp wasn't having it.
So she wanted to sing a song by Joni Mitchell.
And they not a new song, a pre-existing, like something from the Joni Mitchell catalog.
Right.
Which would have really been weird.
Well, I don't think it would be as weird as what they ended up with. I think it would have been a little bit more digestible and maybe actually entertaining. You know,
but at least with what they did, it wasn't a pre-existing song. Wasn't a pre-existing song tossed into Star Wars? Now, this is all relative. We're talking about the holiday special and levels of weirdness and oddity. But you know what I mean, she's going to sing a Joni Mitchell song. I mean, it's just like a folk song that everyone's heard of before.
Well, I mean, it could have been a deep cut or something, but it didn't necessarily, you know, or something that they might have picked at the lyrics a little bit and said, hey, you know, this could actually work in the, like a Star Wars kind of way. But we're also talking about the same holiday special that featured Jefferson Starship performing their song, Light the Sky on Fire. So, I mean...
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yes, that was a pre-existing song. That wasn't something they did for the show.
Not
right?
Specifically, no. I don't, that's a good question and something I should ask our friend Todd Mills. Todd is the road manager for Jefferson Starship. He would probably know. I don't know 100% for sure if that song was specifically written for the holiday special. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure on that.
We could ask Kyle, who produced the documentary.
It might actually be in that documentary, A Disturbance in the Force, because the great bass player from Jefferson Starship, Pete Sears, who's one of my all-time favorites, he speaks extensively about the Jefferson Starship experience with the Star Wars Holiday Special. So, we might have to go and rewatch that a little bit and get that information straight. I do know that Jefferson Starship did eventually release the song on their album Gold. Gold was the name of the album, but the band was in flux during that period of the Star Wars Holiday Special. Grace Slick had left the band, and it was just kind of teetering on the edge there. They did get it back together in the 80s, though. Jefferson Starship did, with the addition of Mickey Thomas to the band, and they had a bunch of hits, like Jane. But Carrie, I think, it might have been something that would have been a better showcase for her singing ability to do a Joni Mitchell song as opposed to whatever that thing is that they had her sing about a day of peace and harmony and all of that stuff. I mean,
I'd have rather heard River. Yeah, I would have rather heard River, I guess, if I had to hear it. That's the only Joni Mitchell song I can name.
Oh, yeah. Her catalog just doesn't flow off the top of my head either. The stuff I know the most about Joni Mitchell is that she slept with everybody in Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. All four of them, I think.
Hopefully not at the same time.
Back in the day when Cros would refer to her as his old lady. I love that, old lady. I love that. But so yeah, we could have heard Carrie actually have a better vehicle for her singing abilities than the thing she ended up singing on that holiday special, that extremely forgettable song. But one thing that was like unforgettable for a lot of us who watched the holiday special when it initially aired is that Boba Fett cartoon. They had that animated feature that showcased the debut of Boba Fett. We'd never seen him before. And that was one thing that a lot of people walked away from the holiday special saying, well, at least that part was good. And that was the Boba Fett cartoon. So Bruce talks a little bit about that here in this next. This is our final clip from the Bruce Villanch book called It Seemed Like a Bad Idea at the Time, The Worst TV Shows in History, and Other Things I Wrote.
Boba Fett always was meant to have his own storyline and pride of place in the Star Wars canon, but for reasons that are only George's to tell, he showed up as a cartoon in our show with both of his tees proudly on display. Who knew 40 years later he would wind up with a deal at Disney+. We had nothing to do with the cartoon, and the cartoon had nothing to do with us. It was produced by a studio in Canada, and all we had to do was plug in a moment for it to be rolled into the show. Since it was a previous adventure of Chewie and Han, there's a good reason for Lumpy to watch it, because he can see his father and wax nostalgic. I suggested we have Mala watch it, and when Chewie is threatened, have her burst into a Susan Hayward moment of madness and tears. But that got a quick veto. When we first saw the video, I immediately recognized Boba's voice as that of Don Franks, a Canadian who had starred in the legendary one-night Broadway flop called Kelly, 1965, but then gone on to appear opposite Petula Clark in the pre-Godfather Francis Ford Coppola's movie version of Finian's Rainbow, 1968. He had a huge Broadway voice, Boba the Belter. Luckily, he didn't have to sing, although it wouldn't have hurt. The cartoon was widely considered to be the only Lucasian thing in the special, and therefore subsequently became revered.
He uses that term Lucasian. That's a term that you've been kind of fond of using over the years, Swank.
Yeah, I just pulled my copy of the Star Wars Vault because all this talk about the song from the holiday special reminded me that this was, as far as I know, the first time that Lucasfilm ever allowed officially the release of something from the holiday special, because there is a compact disc that comes with it, and track number 7 is Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia sings her heart out in the Star Wars holiday special. So they actually released it onto a CD. I don't know how Steve managed to convince Lucasfilm to put that out. Maybe that we'll save that for the live at Rancho show. We can ask him if he remembers how they got them to do that. But great book, Star Wars Vault, goes back 20 years, I think.
This is a great book, yeah, and definitely the only place you could get a licensed release of that song.
Right.
Not that it's worth listening to. At the end of the day, it's still not worth listening to.
No, definitely not. But that Bruce Villanch audiobook sounds like it's worth listening to. I mean,
totally.
His recall, his connection to old Hollywood, new Hollywood. I mean, he's been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. And I love books like that where they're just telling stories. And I'm definitely going to add that to my Audible queue based on hearing what I've heard tonight.
You should. I've already listened to the chapter about the Paul Lynn holiday special. That's
man.
And I'm looking
talk about chemically altered.
Yeah, right. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about his experience with the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, which is like the Star Wars holiday special, one of those shows that it almost seems like a dream / nightmare that it actually really existed, you know?
Yeah, it's bananas, especially the fact it came on after the Brady Bunch series had been canceled.
Yeah.
And they come roaring back on TV, but this time in a variety show.
Yeah, go figure. You know, Mike quit his job as an architect. And all the kids dropped out of school or college or whatever and showed up at a set in Hollywood with Rip Taylor throwing confetti
Which there's a Bruce
around.
Villanch connection. Rip Taylor, Bruce were both center squares in Hollywood Square at various times.
So was Paul Lynn.
So was Paul Lynn. That's right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that's Bruce's book. It's a lot of fun if you like crappy TV from the 70s like I do. As a matter of fact, that was the only TV in the 70s that I was aware of was the real crappy stuff. And Bruce, his fingerprints were all over it. So just to take us out to wrap up the show, we do have a sad note that ties in with the Star Wars holiday special. And Jason, we lost Lumpy.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is a tough one.
I wasn't sure if Jason would be able to do the show as we were preparing because he was visibly shaken by the loss of the person behind the lumpster from the holiday special passing away.
Certainly don't want to make light, but she lived a great life. Died at 89 years young. Patty Maloney. And Jim, I watched the great documentary, The Disturbance of the Force, and I just did not, I don't know, or I just forgot that I knew that Patty Maloney, who was a very well-known a trailblazer as far as little people, actors. She was a little person coming onto the stage or onto the screen back in the 60s. Had worked in the circus. We got a photo up here on the screen for you all access members of her with another legendary little person actor, Billy Barty. And she did a lot of the Sid and Marty Krofft stuff, including something I have no memory of. I went on a little bit of a deep dive on this show. She played Honk in this, what was it? The Sid and Marty Krofft show called Far Out Space Nuts with Bob Denver of Gilligan's Island fame. Do you have any memory of this show? far out space nuts. She was Honk, which was like a some sort of alien, but it was like it was her in like a dog suit or something. Yeah, Bob Denver gets shot out into space with his friend, and they land on some planet, and they meet Honk. Is this ringing any bells?
Now that I hear you say it, there is something that's kind of ringing familiar with me in this show. I mean, obviously, I know Bob Denver from Gilligan's Island. He was also on a show called Love That Bob. He played a character called Maynard Krebs. And I think Ann B. Davis, Alice from the Brady Bunch, was also on that show, if I remember correctly. So
wow, it all comes back to comes back to the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, it's 7 Degrees of Bruce Villanch. I guess we're playing that game now. But yeah, I remember that Love That Bob show. They used to show it on Nick at Night back in the day. But yeah, something sounds familiar. I just have this mental image in my head of Bob Denver sitting in the cockpit of a starship flying through space.
That was the intro to the show. Every episode started with that.
Yeah.
And of course, he plays this bumbling character who accidentally launches him and his friend out into space. They meet Honk, and they have all kinds of adventures.
Honk. But so Patty, she played Lumpy. She said that the Lumpy costume was actually made of all human hair. So like what, they swept up the barber shop and made the Lumpy costume out of that?
Oh my God. The original Chewie costume was what yak hair?
Yak.
Something like that?
And mohair and yak. But she said it was hot
Human
as hell.
hair.
And so she'd be shooting the Towering Inferno early in the day, and then she did stunts too. So she'd do a stunt on Towering Inferno, probably like, a kid jumping over something or whatever her stunt was. And then she'd go and get all of this makeup, this lumpy stuff put all over her. I guess Stan Winston, the famous makeup and costume artist Stan Winston, is the guy who created all those costumes. And so she'd go over doing stunts at Towering Inferno, then check into her next gig that day, which would be the Star Wars Holiday Special, and get her Lumpy on.
Wow.
And there was electronics in the head to get the expressions and all that stuff. So that's Patty Maloney, Star Wars Holiday Special
sadly,
actress.
the Lumpy... Yeah, the Lumpy moniker stuck, and she just became forever known as Lumpy Maloney, and an unfortunate nickname for Patty. But
it sounds like a old Chicago gangster from the 20s. Yeah, Lumpy Maloney. Yeah, see. Yeah. All right. Well,
trailblazer for
Patty.
sure. 3'11", and coming up at a time when it was certainly not easy, to be a little person in Hollywood, and she did it all, man. Hats off to her. Yes, rest in peace, the legendary Patty Maloney.
Farewell, Lumpy.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right, that's going to wrap things up for us here this week on Rebel Force Radio. Thanks so much for hanging out, playing with us a bit. Really, really fun time. Especially the Bruce Villanch clips are awesome. I love going back in time and hearing those kinds of stories. And fascinating that Carrie Fisher could have sung a popular folk song of the day by Joni Mitchell instead of, what was it? The Day of Days. I guess it's the Life Day song. I think that's whatever it is. And lots to look forward to with Tales of the Underworld. Of course, Rebel Force Radio will be there, I'm sure. We'll have some sort of an after show look at the events and the story. We'll see how it goes. We got a lot of coverage over the next between Star Wars Celebration and/or Season 2, Tales of the Underworld. Wowie.
Also, the ILM documentary Light and Magic will have a second season.
Is that official?
That launches.
That's official? Okay. All right. That's been announced.
Yeah, it's coming out later this month. So, and of course, Revenge of the Sith back in theaters. Did you say that?
You know what?
Revenge of the Sith?
No, I didn't. But that's been on our rundown for weeks, and we keep having to skip it. Yeah, Revenge of the Sith back in theaters. Jim, you gonna go?
Oh, heck yeah, I'm gonna go. And
it's a hell of a
my
popcorn premium that's coming out with that. I don't know if you
I saw that Darth Vader popcorn bucket. I think Regal Theaters is going to be having those available. And the second season of Industrial Light and Magic, the ILM documentary on Disney Plus, will be dropping April 18th. April 18th.
Right there during Star Wars Celebration Japan.
Exactly. So a lot of stuff going on Star Wars-wise in the month of April. And then that'll lead us right into May with Tales of the Underworld. So we're going to be busy, and that's the way we like it around here.
With a lot of Andor sprinkled in between, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. And, of course, look nowhere else outside of Rebel Force Radio to bring you the best coverage, discussion, and as I say here, we're fellow travelers in all this stuff. And so we're in this together, so we want you to watch along, and we want your commentary, your theories on our after shows, and your voicemails and your emails to a show at rebelforceradio.com, all that stuff. If you need more Rebel Force Radio in your life, the best place to find that is over on Patreon, patreon.com/rebelforceradio. You can get to it directly, or you can go to rebelforceradio.com and click on the Patreon banner there on the right rail, and boom, you'll be taken right to RFR on Patreon, where you can sign up and subscribe to whatever membership level you would like, whatever's comfortable for you, and the benefits range from the exclusive podcasts like the Q&A, the Babu Freaks, the RPG. Can't get those anywhere else. Those are only available on Patreon, all the way up to the weekly full show video for all access, early entry, and early access to tickets to live events like our September 6th event at Rancho Obi-Wan. So in addition to just being able to hang out with an amazing community of Star Wars fans, also, as we're going to be in the season of after shows, we prioritize. Our call screener, Tyler Page, prioritizes Patreon members for when you're calling in on the after show. So we make sure we get to all of those calls first and foremost. You can find us on YouTube. Oh, this is something a point I wanted to make. Speaking of YouTube, Jim, you may not know this about me, but I'm also a big-time wrestling fan. I love wrestling.
Right.
And something that the WWE has been doing is they have been creating YouTube channels for their legacy historical content that used to be behind a paywall. And I think they ran the math on this, and they said, look, we can either run a subscription service and have all that overhead, or we can dump all this stuff on YouTube and have YouTube pay us for all the views that they're getting, and our fans get to experience it for free. I think this is potentially the future for certain content. So when we heard about Star Wars creating a YouTube channel for Star Wars animation, makes sense to me.
Okay.
Makes sense to me. But Rebel Force Radio is also on YouTube. So check us out at youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. It's a great place to see old archival clips. Some of them you can see if it's during the era when we're doing video. Some of it's just audio, but it's all great stuff, and it goes way back to the early days of RFR. That's all available over there on YouTube. The website, as I mentioned, rebelforceradio.com. And your support is always, always needed and appreciated. And the easiest way to support us is to do what that caller that left us the voicemail earlier that was talking about Rebel Force Radio to some strangers he met on the streets of Manhattan, who just happened to be in Jedi robes. But look, you don't have to wait to find somebody in Jedi robes to talk about Rebel Force Radio. So the Star Wars fans in your life that may not have heard of Rebel Force Radio, please let them know about RFR. We really love to have you spread the word for us. If your podcatcher of choice allows you to subscribe, please do so. If it allows you to leave a review of the podcast, we'd love to have that as well. Just one simple rule, please.
Make them good.
And that is going to wrap it up for us. We will back next week. More Rebel Force Radio. Fear not. We're in for a crazy spring. It's going to be a good time. So it all starts next week. Rebel Force Radio. Thank you all so much for RFR. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
Maybe our paths will cross one day.